Serious concerns about a popular over-the-counter medication,
also known as polyethylene glycol 3350.
Glycol 3350.
The laxative is causing neurological and behavioral problems in children.
Anger, aggression, even seizures.
Like a switch that was flipped, and their once happy, laughing children turned angry and dark.
Paranoia, mood swings, aggression, rage.
He couldn't sleep. He was having night terrors.
It was horrifying.
Anxious and paranoid.
He was punching kids for no apparent reason.
Angry and aggressive.
Pediatricians prescribe it like water. Same ingredients found in antifreeze. Hospital says they can't comment because the study is incomplete.
I wanted to kill everybody. This was a drug-induced toxic psychosis.
I think they're poisoning our children.
Call 911. Where's your emergency? I shot my father. Is he breathing? No, he's dead. I shot him twice in the chest.
This is Poison, a closer look at polyethylene glycol 3350. I'm your host, Wilfredo Manzano. About 4 months ago, I received a text from my wife. She says I should take a look at this blog post she came across. Then she states, "See, we weren't crazy." I click on it and begin reading. It immediately takes me back to 2015.
Dates of intake, February 19, 2015. Reason for referral. Gavin was referred for psychological services by his pediatrician, given fear and anxiety subsequent to taking Miralax. Presenting problems. Parents reported that in September 2014, Gavin was prescribed Miralax to address irregular bowel movements. Subsequently, Gavin began experiencing anxiety and even paranoia. Miralax was stopped, but Gavin continued to experience fear and anxiety. Gavin has been experiencing persistent and excessive fear about being alone, more specifically, away from his parents. He has been experiencing significant distress when separated from parents. For example, waking up at night repeatedly, expressing fear of a monster, refusing to sleep in his room without his father, desiring constant reassurance from his parents. This behavior has been most apparent in the home setting. For example, playing, going to the bathroom, and sleeping in his room. Gavin also has been experiencing excessive worry about harm coming to his parents/family. For example, an intruder coming into home. Symptoms have not generalized to other settings, for example, school or other family members' home. Overall, Gavin has been experiencing a significant level of fear, distress, and anxiety related to separation from parents, which has been impairing his functioning in the home setting. Initial diagnosis: separation anxiety disorder. Overall goal of treatment: reduce overall frequency, intensity, and duration of anxiety. Final diagnosis: anxiety NOS.
That's our story. I'll be honest, it had been about 4 years and we hadn't really thought about it. We felt lucky to have overcome it and had moved on. But as soon as I finished reading that blog post, I started investigating other stories that sounded strikingly similar to ours. Others were simply heartbreaking and tragic. So much had been taking place around this subject. I had no idea. I had a lot of catching up to do.
Well, my son Warren was just the most delightful, precious, adorable child you could imagine. Our family really called Warren the Little Delight. That was sort of his nickname because he was always easygoing and
this is Anne.
Very, very easy to deal with, enjoyable, engaging, and quite funny. He remains that way today. At around age 12, he became constipated, like so many preteen boys do, based on diet. Of course, he did not drink enough water and did not eat very well. His favorite foods were macaroni and cheese, top ramen noodles, burgers, fries, sodas, and he was a very picky eater, so I found it quite challenging to get him to eat any kind of nutritious foods. If I had it to do all over again, certainly diet would have been how I addressed it. But I did try a lot of things, but they did not work. So I let him rule the roost, as many children do, and many parents will identify with that. So we took him to the pediatrician, and she happened to think his abdomen was quite firm and that he was constipated. he was very private when he would go to the bathroom, so I didn't always monitor how often he was going. I suspect now he was probably going once every 2 to 3 days. The pediatrician said, well, let's start him on Miralax. And it was coming up for Christmas vacation, so I thought, great, we'll start this awful Miralax. He did not like it. I had to mix it in the glass, and he would drink it, and he was very resistant. But he did drink it, and he started going to the bathroom. And his disposition actually seemed to get better initially. And we didn't think too much about it. That was because the constipation was relieved.
My son's name is Robert. We started giving him Miralax when he was about 3 years old.
This is April.
The doctors, we went in, they said, oh, here, let's try Miralax, see if this helps. Started him on Miralax. At first it was 1 capsule a day. And he was walking, talking, everything was fine. All of a sudden, we started to see where he was falling over a lot, like just standing and falling over, or when he was walking, he was bumping into things. We would also see like where he wasn't as social. He wasn't talking as much as normal, not smiling as much. You could see it in pictures that we had a happy baby and, you know, toddler, and then you start seeing pictures where he's not looking at the camera, he's not smiling. We started to notice behavior changes, more tantruming, but, you know, at 3, you expect that. You think, oh, it's, you know, he's 3, you know, he's tantruming, but it just kept getting worse as he got older.
He all of a sudden became very sullen, almost depressed, very standoffish, didn't want to talk, spent a lot of time in his room doing artwork, and I thought, what is going on with this child? And it was concerning, but his older brother had died. So for us, we blamed it on that. His brother had died at the age he was at that time, 12 years old. So it became sort of a mystery. The holidays went on and he seemed better. And the next thing, he is crawling in the bed with me at night. And I remember waking up out of just a deep sleep. And he was with his hand kind of pulling on my shoulder and whimpering, almost like an injured animal. And he wouldn't tell me what was wrong. He just said, I don't feel well. I don't feel well. And we were starting to get a little bit more concerned about him as the days went on. And then when it came time for him to go back to school, he started saying, I don't want to go to school. And that was very unusual and very odd for him because he loved school. He had a lot of friends. We were just concerned about him, but again, didn't understand why. We asked the teachers if they had noticed anything about him, and they said, no, not a thing. So we just thought, well, we'll just crack it up to being a preteen. Maybe there's a girlfriend in his life not showing him interest, or something's going on that we can't explain, and we just sort of wrote it off. Then the first day that it was time for him to go back to school, I was supposed to drive the carpool, and I could not find him. I looked all over the house. And finally, I went into my room and I found him. Now, this is a very normal child. I found him huddled under the covers at the bottom of our bed. And I said, Lauren, I don't know what's going on, but whatever it is, we will get some help for you. And he jumped out and he said, help me, please. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is worse than I thought. I said, I can either take you to school or I can take you somewhere to get help. He said, take me somewhere to get help. I took all the other kids to school and told them I had to take Warren to the doctor. At that point, I called my husband. I called a friend who was a psychological intern. She was getting her psychology degree, and asked her, did she have any recommendations? And she said, take him to the local community clinic. So my husband met me there, and we waited outside, and Warren was very quiet and he looked paranoid to me. He was very sullen and very with his head dropped. I mean, this was a confident, joyous little boy, and I was not seeing any of those signs. We took him in to see a counselor, and they asked the parents to leave. So my husband and I stepped out, and then they asked my husband to come back in. About the only thing my son said is, I don't want my mother in the room. At that point, he would not talk any further. He would not say anything to anyone. And they told my husband that they felt like it was getting to the point where they were going to have to Baker Act him.
I would say the Miralax wasn't working for him, so I kept bringing him back to the doctor, and they would say, okay, we're going to increase the dose. Then we kept increasing the dose. So we did not just one capsule a day every day for a month. We also did an entire bottle in one sitting in one day. This went on from age 4 until he was about 7. At 7 years old, they said, you know what, I've not gotten a proper diagnosis. We don't know what's going on. He's still having these breakthrough accidents. He's still constipated. We don't know what's causing all of this. The behaviors got to the point where he was harming himself and others. He would just break down in tears. He would scratch himself. He was hitting himself in the head. And at age 6, he was diagnosed with autism at age 6. By 7 years old, I took him off of Miralax, and we had withdrawals. He had actual withdrawals from Miralax. A year later, after taking him off Miralax, was when he started having, or actually right after we took him off Miralax, he started having seizures. And I took him to the doctor, to the neurologist. They did testing. They said, yes, we see something. We don't know what it is. Come back in a year. And I said, in a year? Well, he's having seizures now. His seizures got worse. There were a lot of things after getting off Miralax. We started to see really crazy behaviors, even worse than when he was on it, to the point where he was trying to basically kill himself.
You know, I knew what Baker acting was. I knew that they put you in for psychological observation. This little boy had never exhibited any psychological problems in his life. At that point, we thought, well, this all has to do with his brother's death. Again, never connecting it to the Miralax.
Miralax, the way it works to solve a constipation problem is it causes water to go into the gut, and it basically flushes everything out with the water. It wipes out everything, so it's going to take all the bacteria out of your gut. It's going to basically clean your gut out. It's recommended for people over 17 years old, and it's recommended for only 1 week. You shouldn't take it for more than a week. I think it says that on the label. And so how you could imagine that a doctor would say it's fine to take it sort of chronically is very surprising to me.
That was Stephanie Seneff, senior research scientist at MIT.
Let's review the label really quick. I believe the label still says 7 days, and I believe the label still says for use in patients 17 and older. Our son, he was 4 when he started Miralax, and he took it for nearly 5 years.
and Mike Kohler, parent and administrator of the Facebook group Parents Against Miralax. You'll hear more from them later.
We left without our child, feeling very powerless, very helpless, very concerned, and worse yet, leaving our child in a psychiatric unit for children where there were other children with serious problems. So a couple of days went by. We went by to see him each day. They would only let us come for a short visit. Apparently he was being seen by counselors, being seen by a psychiatrist. And about the second day, they called us both in, spoke to us separately, seemed to think there was really nothing wrong with Warren. But of course they hadn't been giving him Miralax for a couple of days. He said to us, "Let me get out of here. This place is awful. You know, they're watching me. I can't sleep without someone watching me." We met with a psychiatrist. Again, we all thought this was due to the death of his brother. So the psychiatrist at that time recommended antidepressants, and I said, no, that's definitely not something I want to try. I'm a nurse and I understand what the side effects are, and they're very serious. His older brother had died from a suicide. His older brother had died. He had been on ADHD medication and an antidepressant for about 5 years. So, and he had confided in us that he felt like dying. The psychologist said, bring him back when he's a teen. That's when they really have problems. I don't think you have a thing in the world to worry about, this young man, this young boy. And 4 months later, my older son had shot and killed himself at his grandparents'. So we had already dealt with our trauma, at least all the trauma I thought we possibly could have lived through in our lifetime. And just dealing with this was bad enough. But we did talk to the psychiatrist. He wanted to start antidepressant. We refused. We said that we would consider it again in 6 months if there was still a problem. Warren was discharged. The only thing that we agreed to was for him to go see another psychiatrist on an outpatient basis. We went home, and it felt like we had our little boy back. We did get him in to see a psychologist. He didn't like talking to her at all and remained rather closed-mouthed with her. It's very hard for parents to accept that there might be something different going on than what a medical doctor can tell you, because we're all so grasping at straws. We want to find the answers so quickly for our children, and the answers are not always as apparent as they seem. Warren slowly started coming back to returning to his normal self, which is a typical story. Parents say, you know, whatever happened, all of a sudden we had our child back once they stopped the Miralax. He was a commentator on the morning TV show at school. He loved that. He loved his friends. He was very involved in church. He was involved in the children's chorus. He started middle school and life went on. But then in 8th grade, I found him on the floor in the bathroom one morning before school, and he was holding his abdomen, and he looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he shook his head no. And I said, "Do you need to go to the doctor?" And he nodded just vigorously, "Yes, I don't know what's wrong." The x-ray tech took an x-ray, and I poked my head in the back, and I said, "Do you mind if I come take a look at the x-ray?" I said, "I'm a nurse." And she said, "Oh no, come on back." And she showed me the x-ray, and she said, "We see this about every other day." She said, "We see it in boys your son's age more often than any other age group, I think." And she said, "We call it FOS." And she said, "That stands for full of you know what." She said, "Go on back over to the pediatrician's office, and the pediatrician will tell you what to do." And the pediatrician wrote out a prescription on a prescription pad, 1 capful of Miralax every hour until bedtime. I made out a little schedule every single hour he was supposed to get it, and he started drinking it. He had been to the doctor. He had heard the doctor tell him to do it, so he did what he was supposed to do. And when my husband came home, I told my husband what we were doing, and he said, "We can't give that little kid that much of this medicine." And I said, "Don't be silly. Don't be ridiculous. It's an over-the-counter medication. It's safe. The pediatrician prescribed it. They give it to kids all the time." And that poor little child got an adult daily dose every hour for about the next 12 to 15 hours. Then we were supposed to give him a daily dose. Sunday, Warren was supposed to go to church, to his youth group. And he started complaining about 2 hours before, and he said, I don't want to go. Everybody acts so strange at church. And I remember looking at him and thinking, what on earth are you talking about? You love going to church. He said, no, Mom, really, everybody acts weird there. And I said, Warren, I've never heard you talk like this. Mom, I'm telling you, everybody's weird. They act strange. I don't want to go. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, what? I'll go with you. He said, okay, you go. Then you'll see how strange everyone is. And we went, and it was not a typical interaction night that I would have suspected from my son, because I had been to church with him many times before, and he was quite gregarious, laughing, joking, having lots of fun. And Warren's regular friends that he interacted with, he did not interact with at all. So we took 2 little boys home from church that night, and as soon as they got out of the car, he turned to me and he said, did you see what I was talking about? Didn't you see how weird everyone was behaving? And I said, no, Warren, everybody was acting just like they always act. Looking back on it, I now understand that he had developed a paranoia that was irrational. And I even called one of our ministers, who is usually in the youth group, and asked him if he had noticed anything odd. But the Miralax had just started Friday, and this was the second day after the Miralax. We're sort of starting to worry about his behavior. What's happening? Why is this happening? Monday night, he was drawing in his room, and I went in and I said, hey, Warren, you know your dad's college roommate is coming tonight. I said, I would like for you to come out. You don't have to come spend a lot of time with us, but I would like for you to have dinner with us and enjoy some conversation. And he said, oh, Mom, do I have to? And I remembered looking at him so strangely, thinking, this is not my son. Normally, he would have said, oh, yes, I would love that. And then I said to him, and his wife will be coming with him too. And he said, what? His wife? And it was just such a strange reaction coming from my son. It was very atypical, very uncharacteristic like. And he did come out, and he was able to interact very nicely and enjoyed the conversation. And then he excused himself and went back into his bedroom. So just like a lot of these kids on Miralax can kind of come in and out, they're in and out of this state. Just discombobulation is the only thing I can call it. And then he went to school the next day, Tuesday, and every night we were giving him Miralax right around dinner time. So he went to school on Tuesday, went to school Wednesday. We're talking about 9 years now. It's been a long time. Thursday is the day the accident, or the tragedy, as I call it, happened.
On the next episode of Poison.
Police say the father and son had been watching TV. Then Williams left the room and came back with a gun.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Is he breathing?
No, he's dead.
I don't know. I kind of hold myself responsible, even though I know the doctor recommended it and prescribed it, but I should have known better. That's how I feel. Like, I should have known, I just keep looking back and saying, why didn't I realize that then, and it's hard.
Poison features the stories and opinions of parents who have seen firsthand adverse reactions to using products containing polyethylene glycol 3350, and is told week by week with new episodes every Tuesday. We'll also have some professionals on future episodes who can shed some light on the topic. This is our first podcast, so please bear with us as we are learning as we go. Thank you for listening to Poison. Please make sure to subscribe and rate us on iTunes and leave a review. If you'd like to share your story with us, visit our website at poisonpod.com.